Welcome to our fourth episode of Tangled Rights. Here is Shane Cox, teenage hairstyle, 45-year-old looking face, and Justin Wilson.
Justin W. Wilson.
Justin W. Wilson here with us.
More importantly than both of us, we have Kerri Maxey here.
Hello.
She was so excited to come here. She graciously accepted my request. She wanted me to point out to everybody, she didn't actually ask me, she just talked about it. She doesn't have over 20 years legal experience, only 19. I aged her a little bit, and I'm gratefully just ashamed of myself for my math error. I could have swore you said 20. I don't know why I thought that. I truly thought at your campaign event that we went to, I thought you said 20. That's where I got that from. But
19 years doing juvenile law and then 1 year with adults.
Oh, that's where. So the math was mathing, but the.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's perfect. So tell me, 19 years, like introduce yourself. Tell me what you've done in the law. That's awesome.
Well, I graduated from UNLV with a bachelor's in economics, and then I went to Boyd School of Law and graduated there. I got a job immediately in the public defender's office at the juvenile division and represented children in all areas of the law that you can think of in juvenile justice, from just juvenile court. I followed my clients when they got certified to adult court, and I even wrote appeals. Then I left the public defender's office, wanted to get more experience in juvenile law, represent a different kind of child, and went to Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, where I represented kids in guardianship and kids in dependency, where CPS gets involved, and followed my cases that cross over into custody cases too.
All right. I'm going to pause you real quick because I want to, for the listeners and for everybody who doesn't know, let's ask a couple of questions. Certified. What does that mean?
That means when the state thinks that the child needs to answer to the charges in the adult system. So they will file a motion for certification, and depending on what the charge is, the age of the child will depend whether or not that you get to argue it and fight against it, or if the child is directly certified into the adult system, kind of like Monopoly, do not pass go, go directly to jail type of thing.
If I recall correctly, I think that there are certain, like it has the breakdown in the statute 14, 15, 16, right?
Correct.
And if it's 14 at this level charge, it's an automatic thing, but I don't think that happens. My recollection is that 16 with this level felony, like 16 with an A-level felony?
It's 16 with any kind of charge of murder, attempt murder, a charge that is sexually violent, that type of thing, they will automatically go to the adult system.
And then on the opposite side, is there a certain age where kids are just per se not chargeable?
You mean like not chargeable at all? Under 8 years old.
Right.
A kid can get arrested and charged at age 8.
But 7?
7, no.
And that's also in the statute, if I recall correctly.
Correct.
Okay. And then the next thing you said that I want to dive into a little bit is guardianship, because guardianship can mean a lot of things in the law, right?
Okay, yes.
Right? Like there's the guardianship like someone could have over me if I was to walk outside and get hit by a bus and I can't, think properly anymore. I get a brain injury. But then there's other kinds, right? Like this kind.
So the guardianship you're talking about is adult guardianship, where the adult has to be some kind of incapacitated, can't make medical and legal decisions on their behalf. With children, there's two types of guardianships. There's guardianships where the parents are not involved, or they're abandoned the child or unable to care for the child. So somebody will file for guardianship, and then that person basically becomes the pseudo-parent, will be able to make medical, educational, and legal decisions on behalf of the child. There's also medical guardianships where the parents, due to religious issues, just beliefs or something, are not providing the child with the necessary medical procedures that they need, so the hospitals will step in and file for guardianship over the child to get that child medical care.
Would that be something like, I know that there are certain religions that don't believe in blood transfusions.
Yes, I actually had one of those clients.
Okay. And I was just trying to think of something that would be a pretty easy example to kind of illustrate. And so in that instance, if it's something that's like A blood transfusion, I get it. It's invasive, right? To have someone else's blood in you, but also it's pretty basic. It's not like rocket surgery, right? Very simple.
Very simple. However, there is a religion that
Sure.
they cannot have blood transfusions.
Sure. And so in that instance, then the hospital petition.
The hospital did petition. I represented a 7-year-old at the time. He understood what was happening, and he did not want the blood transfusion. So I had to make those hard arguments on his behalf because I represent his wishes and argue against the blood transfusion.
Yeah. Doesn't that go back? And if I recall, there's a case out of, I think the seminal Supreme Court case for parent decisions is the one out of Minnesota with the German community and the one that teach their kids in German rather than English, right? Isn't that like one of the seminal cases for that?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Law school memories are popping up as we're talking about this stuff. Okay, so you got into juvenile and you transferred to these guardianships and everything, and then what'd you do next?
And then I realized I was getting old and I was worried about my retirement and went back to the county to get back into PERS. So I went back to the public defender's office, and I'm representing adults who get arrested on the corridor.
Oh, nice. Actually, we are in the same courtroom, aren't we?
Correct. Yes, that's how I met you.
It is. And I'm very lucky to have met you. I'm very excited. You've always been super helpful to me. Obviously, it was a lot different, going from being a prosecutor to doing civil law and then just jumping right back into criminal. I mean, obviously, I have an understanding of it, but primarily not the other side of it. I do get it, but it was definitely sort of a baptism by fire, especially picking that track up. Just
I'm sure.
Having all his cases on me, and then that first month, I think I got another 20 cases, and at the time, I didn't even have an assistant. It was just me. Ugh, it was awful. But okay, so you're there now. How long you been there?
Since October 2023. So what is that, like 8 months?
Wow. You started a month before I did. That's funny. I thought you had been there forever. Like the way, I don't know.
Well.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where you're at now. Where are you trying to go?
I am running for Clark County District Court Family Judge Department N. So
Department N.
N is in Nancy, yeah.
Sure, but what are they? Are they like A to Z? What's going on?
Yes.
Literally?
Yeah, I swear.
What?
Yeah, there's a lot of family
There's
court
26
judges.
departments?
Yes.
Okay, so do they all, is it kind of like here where certain district court judges don't handle some of the criminal cases, or some just doing guardianships, or do they do a smattering of all of it?
It's for last names that start with N, I think. No.
I was like, that would actually be a pretty sensible
cool.
way to break it up.
Yeah.
Like you have all the N's, you have
Yeah.
all the L's or whatever. Like that'd be smart.
Then you'd get too many
Sometimes.
with Nelson or...
Oh, you get Z. You want to be Z.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to be Z. You
Z.
have 5 clients all year. No. Okay, so
What is your assignment? What
would you be?
Yeah, what would be the assignment?
Whatever
in
the
Department
chief
N?
judge assigns me to.
Okay.
So there's the majority of family court is divorce and custody. That's the majority of the cases. You do have judges that handle delinquency, which are the kids that get arrested, dependency, which are the kids that are taken into state custody because of CPS issues, because of abuse and abandonment. You have the guardianship judges. There's a lot of areas. So I would just be assigned to,
a ton of stuff.
yeah.
Okay. Is that kind of what you want, or is there an area you'd prefer to focus in? Like, is there one area you like the best and you feel like you'd be best suited to preside over that area?
I think I would be best suited to preside over the area where children are involved, which is divorce and custody, which is guardianship, delinquency, and dependency.
So all of them.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess that is a perfect segue. So I'm a voter. I'm already sold. You sold me before. You already sold me once, but sell me again. Why should I vote for you, Kerri?
I've been representing kids for 19 years, and by representing kids, I have protected their constitutional rights, their legal interests, but most importantly, their voice. It seems like these family court judges get so wrapped up with the adults that are in their courtroom, they forget there's a child in a courtroom, and that child is a person, has feelings, and has a voice. And a lot of the times, the family court judges won't listen to that child. And these children are so smart, they're so authentic, they can really explain to you the situation of what's going on if you would just listen to them. And that's what I would do. I would listen to them. I would focus on that child, make sure that that child's best interest is protected, and protect that child. I would be a champion for that child on the bench.
Couldn't ask for anything more, I don't think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When is it that we can vote for you?
In November. Anybody who lives in Clark County and is a registered voter can vote for me.
Yeah, and with the judges, it's nonpartisan. So it's basically it'll list each department. So family court, and it'll say department N, and it'll have you and whoever else.
Correct.
The other person is obviously unimportant in this matter. I'm saying that, not her, and I'm not anybody. I'm just a guy. But yeah, so it'll be pretty clear. Kerri Maxey. That's a unique name. There's probably not too many Kerri Maxeys.
No, there's not.
There's only one.
And this is Cox and Wilson of official endorsement, Tangled Rights official endorsement of Kerri Maxey. So.
Yep, 10 out of 10
Thank
for
you.
several reasons. Okay, so now that we know that you handled juvenile and adult criminals, so we have a couple questions we wanted to ask you, and this is going to segue into some other stuff. What's different as far as terminology in juvenile cases and adult criminal cases?
Kids admit or deny the charges. Adults plead guilty or not guilty. That's the main difference.
Why do you think that is? If you know why it is, just tell me. But
It's to keep the theory, because juvenile law is about rehabilitation. And so the language was developed to keep that theory that kids can be rehabilitated and we can make sure that they don't reoffend.
okay, and that sounds, I think, less heavy too. Saying,
Yes.
I admit that this happened, instead of saying I'm guilty
Correct.
of doing this.
So you're almost trying to plant the seed in their head that, yeah, you admitted it, but you're not your worst mistake.
Yes.
You can be whoever you want to be.
Correct.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. That this is not the end. This is just a bump in the road of your life.
Sure.
Because we do civil law a lot, and it's like, if you're not 18, you can't file a lawsuit. You cannot sign a contract. The second you turn 18, all the power, you can do anything. You can max out a credit card if you want.
You can get $400,000 in student loans.
Yes.
You can give 6 years of your life away to the United States military.
Or you can even join when you're 17 as long as you turn 18, right? And
Yeah,
in boot
you
camp.
can. You can tell your mom, "Hey, I know it's 2 days after my 17th birthday. You're signing the papers." And
Yeah.
she does, and then you ship out after you graduate. You can do that.
So the dichotomy of civil versus criminal
Strange.
is crazy, because we went into those questions about what we call, in a less experienced criminal lawyer, trying someone as an adult, that we hear about on TV. And it's, even though you're 15, you could be tried as an adult if you have an attempt murder, which an attempt murder you could get pretty easily. That's a lot lower than actually being charged with murder and someone dying. So
Sure.
pulling a trigger could get you an attempt murder charge
Or
for,
throwing something at him.
or throwing something,
You
or
could get an attempt murder for picking up a rock at a park and throwing it at somebody, right?
Yes.
Theoretically.
Theoretically, yes.
But that's a far cry from actually, doing the thing. I think we already talked about certification, so we can kind of skip that one. I know it's listed in the statute, but is there any gray area with that? Or room to argue, I guess.
Yes, depending on the age of the child and the charge, if it's presumptive or a if it's a presumptive certification, then the child is presumed to be certified, and so you have to argue. You're the one that has to change the judge's decision on that.
And what's the burden there?
You can be the child can be certified just based on the charge itself, or based on the juvenile history. And then where the gray room is the subjective factors. And that's where you paint the picture. You tell the judge who this child is and how the childhood was, parents, all of that. And that's where you can win your case. Right now, we don't have it's under INRI 7 minors is the matrix that the court follows. We're one of the very few states in the United States that doesn't have their certification process codified. So it's just, yes.
What?
Yeah, but not surprising at the
Face
same
that I
time.
mean, it is Nevada, right?
It
We don't
is
have law
Nevada.
on anything.
Judges don't like to be overturned.
You gave him a
No,
good
they
walloping, didn't you?
Yes.
In your appellate argument,
Yes,
obviously.
absolutely.
You argued the
Absolutely.
facts and law artfully.
Yes.
Correct? Do you actually go to the Supreme Court for that?
I've never been invited to argue in front of the Supreme Court.
Oh, you just did it on the briefing, huh?
Yeah.
She was
So,
so good. She
for-
lit that paper on fire.
For those that don't know, Kerri, tell us, what does it mean when you file an appeal? Just briefly tell us what an appeal is, and then tell us what happened, what it means to say your appeal was granted on just the briefing without any argument.
You want like the legal term?
No. Just
Oh,
explain
okay.
it to somebody like who like
Well,
you're talking to a layperson.
Like a kid, I would tell a kid, so I'm going to go to his bosses and I'm going to tell his bosses that he was wrong and this is why he is wrong. And I'm going to write a piece of paper explaining to his boss how I'd explain it.
Do his bosses usually want you to talk to him about the paper, or
No.
usually not when Kerri writes it? They don't. I've only heard of it. I mean, I guess it's different, right? Because I've never actually talked to anybody who did a juvenile appeal. Sorry. But most of the people I've talked to that did either criminal or civil appeals, they end up having to have some sort of argument with it. So they'll have to go up to Carson or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I don't know. As soon as you tell me, I did it without any argument, I'm just like,
He was really wrong. This
real
time.
bad.
He was really.
He was super wrong.
He was really naughty.
And his bosses understood me. That's awesome. So
I wanted to ask about another one because I've been in juvenile court just a little bit. They do not adjudicate or find someone guilty.
Correct.
They use a different word, right?
No, kids get adjudicated, adults get convicted.
Right. Or I guess adjudicated, not guilty though.
No, not
but
guilty.
Delinquent.
Yeah, they're found delinquent, yes.
And why is that word used differently, you think?
Because again, it's all about the theory that children can be rehabilitated. Children not criminals, they're delinquents.
Okay.
It's the play on words. And
I think that's more temporary. Like you are temporarily delinquent and you can
be undelinquent.
rehab and you can not
Yes.
be delinquent anymore. It's like being not on time or not somewhere where you should be. But hey, we can correct that. There's just a little course correction that this one needs. So.
yes.
Do you, in line with that, do you find that the course correction works better there? Like the whole purpose of criminal law in total, whether it be juvenile or adult, is rehabilitation. You know, getting people to behave appropriately in society. Do you find that works better in juvenile court?
I think it does, but I think it's because the juvenile's brain is not fully developed. So you can mold their brain and teach them the proper way to behave.
Sure.
So I think that's the reason why. Yes.
Right. I was delinquent as a kid.
Were you?
Never found delinquent. I just was.
You just was?
Oh yeah. I was a little white trash kid running around in Southeast Kansas. You know, cut off jean shorts, waders, a tank top, camo backpack, and a fishing pole in the summertime. Like, you'd find me down at the river. Just no one knew where I was. Just out there, delinquent, dirty, just awful kid. I mean, no, I was all right. I wasn't terrible.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like you were committing any offenses.
Oh, lots of trespassing.
Oh, well.
If there's offense,
Well, in
Whatever.
corridor court, that's what, 30 days, then 90 days, then 120 days in CCDC for
Yeah.
trespassing.
what's CCDC?
Clark County Detention Center.
That's our local
Jail.
for misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor crimes.
Yes.
If you come to town and want to be an idiot and get arrested, that's where you'll find yourself.
It's not awesome. Don't go there. 10 out of 10,
Downtown.
10 out of 10. Don't recommend.
It's by Fremont Street, though. So
It's close.
if you get out,
You'll get there quick.
you're
but
right back in the middle of things. But you don't want to go to, if you're on the strip, get arrested, you don't want to be on Fremont Street after.
do juveniles have jail?
Yes, we have juvenile detention.
And how long are they in there?
You can't, the child can't serve time in juvenile detention. If they're going to go to a correctional placement, it's Spring Mountain, Caliente, Elko, or some of you.
And are those camps? That's what they're referred to, right?
Spring Mountain Youth Camp is a camp that's up on Mount Charleston. Caliente is a place in Caliente.
yeah.
It's not really a camp. It's
But it's not like a traditional jail either.
no,
right?
it's not a traditional jail. They have kind of like pods where the kids sleep in. Caliente is the only correctional placement for girls. That's the only place we have for girls in Nevada.
They don't get a camp up on Mount Charleston?
No.
That's terrible.
I know.
Mount Charleston's awesome.
Right now, it's hot.
It's
I want to
awesome
be
all
up
year
there.
round.
Yeah, it is nice to be up there right now. Yes.
Sure. Okay. So that's, I think one of the things that I learned is that's pretty much the worst result in the juvenile case, right? That stays in juvenile court is that they have to go to camp for a few months.
Yes, it's a 6 to 9 month program.
Okay. But that's, nothing compared to what they would have got with the same charges as an adult potentially.
Correct.
You're dealing at, let's say you get 6 to 9 months in one of these camps, one of these programs. As an adult, you could be looking at a 19 to 48 month sentence,
Correct.
on the low end for something like attempt possession of a stolen vehicle or something like that. Yes. The only reason I know that is because I've taken a couple of juvenile cases and I've sort of had to learn on my own that it was different, because I go in there thinking, all right, perfect, I'm going to go arraign this kid.
Did you ask for bail?
No.
Oh, good.
No. I was like, what is happening in here? But you pick it up really quick that it's a little different. And the judges were all super helpful because they're like, "You're not from around here, are you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm definitely not from around here."
The public defenders are helpful though
Yeah.
to private attorneys because
We had a
we help their load a little bit.
Sure.
too.
We had a co-defendant case, and so we kind of piggybacked off of each other. I did think the prosecutors down there were, I don't know, their case didn't seem as strong as they were acting, and the prosecutors in here at the DA's office, they're smart. And I'm not saying these guys aren't smart, but they don't bluff like that. Like I believe them when they're like, "Hey, we got this evidence and stuff," and then I look at it and they're right. Versus whenever the cases aren't as strong and I have the suspicion, you pick up on it a little quicker. I think I don't. Maybe it's because the system's different in juvenile that they try. Hey, even if we can't necessarily get it, all check all the boxes, we still want to rehabilitate this kid because there may be an issue that we can correct in this way. I mean, did you ever experience anything like that?
That was one of the issues in juvenile justice is that the judges, the hearing masters, will adjudicate a child just to give them services, even though there's doubt all over the place. Yeah. You went to a bench trial, but they will still find the child basically guilty because they want to provide services.
Which, I mean, no long-term effect on the record, really.
No long-term effect on the record, but however, when a child gets into the system, I mean, it's difficult for the child to get out. Studies show that if you keep a child in the home with therapy, with treatment, with wraparound services, the likely to reoffend drops. But the minute you take the child out of the home, then their likelihood to reoffend increases.
Okay. What are the options? Like, do they have those kind of in-the-home wraparound services instead of the camps and stuff?
They started the Harbor, which is a diversion program to address those issues before the child even gets into the system or goes to court.
Right. That's the whole point of diversion, right?
Yeah.
It's, hey, this is...
But they didn't have that when I first started. That wasn't even there. I think it opened up probably in when I left, which was about 2019 is when they started opening the harbors.
Well, I mean, it's a developing process, right?
Yes.
Better late than never.
Exactly. Better late than never.
And I mean, I think that when you see something like that, it's almost like, hey, we're recognizing we need a course correction because what we're doing isn't working great. And frankly, anytime the government does that, bravo, good job. That's not something that you're super skilled at usually, government. Okay, so obviously I don't know all the things I should ask. Is there anything else interesting about juvenile that you'd like to tell us before we move on?
Well, for civil, did you realize that juvenile follows civil procedure?
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Like the NRCP? Like
Yes.
16.1,
Yes.
32, all that
Yes.
stuff?
Because it's not criminal.
Huh.
It is in the family court building that
Sure.
you do have to go here, and which is civil as well.
So technically, you could, file for depositions and file for interrogatories.
discovery and stuff?
Yeah.
So it's a weird intermingling between criminal law and civil law.
Correct.
But
It's a
good.
hybrid.
I think it's good that way.
I'll say the one thing I know about juvenile criminal law is there can never be a punishment of the death penalty for anyone who commits a crime under the age of 18. One of those things that
Not anymore.
if you're 17 years old and 364 days, no death penalty when you commit the crime. 18 years old, yes, death penalty.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah, the Supreme
That
Court.
case is awful. The case where they determine that that's why they're not going to do that anymore. That 14-year-old or 13-year-old kid out of Mississippi back in the 60s.
Oh, okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, that case was horrible. You know
it was
me.
horrible.
I don't
Roper
like.
Simmons, yes.
We
Yeah,
thought
so-
you were saying you want to put more kids to death.
I know, that's what I was thinking
No,
too.
I said that case was awful. The case that did this. The case
The facts.
The facts
Yes.
of that case.
Okay.
The U.S. Supreme Court cases are always based on situations. They're always based on facts and circumstances. So the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court decided this means that a state said, no, we want to put to death
13-year-olds.
13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. We want our state's rights to put these kids to death. And so the fact that that had to come to the Supreme Court is not great. That's what you're saying. Oh, okay, good. Glad we clarified that one.
Yes, no, I'm not saying kill kids. Like, what's wrong with you guys? No, I'm saying like, because, okay, so my brain works really weird. I have like a squirrel brain. He starts talking about this, and I immediately connected to the Supreme Court case in my head, and I thought we were all on the same page, and I was like, yeah, that case was awful. It was horrible. I remember reading it, and like, you see his picture and everything. But anyway, yeah, I remember reading that case, and just, you know, and you see the picture of him and stuff, and he's like 12 years old, or 13, he's like a child. Like a kid, you know. Anyway,
But they can't, like, someone under the age of 18 could be tried as an adult and put in prison for a lifetime sentence, right?
But they have to have
No.
the opportunity to go up to the parole board.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't get like life without.
Yeah, that's cruel and unusual punishment.
Okay.
Eighth Amendment, baby.
Okay.
We love them amendments.
Hey, just don't turn 18 when you do your
Just
crimes.
don't. Just
Yeah.
don't. Be 17. Or, we've said this before, and we're going to say it again. Don't commit crimes.
True.
Try not to murder, if you could.
But as we've always said, you could be charged with something that
Even if you didn't do it. Yep. So that kind of goes into something, charges. So you hear people call, and I'm sure at the PD's office you get this all the time with defendants, and they're like, well, especially in like DV cases or whatever, like, well, you know, she's not going to press charges on me. Once, you know, the police have already come there, they've filed a report, you get the probable cause affidavit sent to the DA, and charges are actually filed. So what bearing does that have when a victim of a crime doesn't want to actually press charges?
Bearing on the defense,
On the case.
I think it's you have to tread lightly because a lot of times the victims will contact the PD's office asking, you know, what they need to do, and you can't give them legal advice because you don't represent them. So it's very difficult. A lot of times just listening to them gives them the strength that they need so that when you do go to trial, they can tell what they want to say to the district attorney at that time.
I have not made it a practice, but it's kind of come out this way where I tend to not talk to the victims. Mm-hmm. I haven't had any call me directly. I've had a couple message me or email me. But I've been honest with defendants when they ask me questions, right? So for example, let's say it's a case where, you know, you have a domestic situation that just turns kind of dumb, but it's not one where someone's like punching somebody else in the face, but still somebody gets arrested. And they ask me, they're like, well, what happens if she doesn't want to do this anymore, or he doesn't want to do this? So the last one was a he. It was like, what happened? The woman got arrested, which, you know, not usual, but it happens. Well, what happens if he doesn't want to do this anymore? Well, I have to tell them straight up, without a victim, usually they can't meet their burden. And it's true.
And I hope you also remind your client that
Absolutely. I tell them you cannot, and it's illegal, and I'm specifically not telling you to tell this person not to show up. I'm just telling you that if they don't, because they ask me, but I'm always abundantly clear. You cannot, and I'm not even like, oh, I'm speaking between the lines here, insinuating, yeah, just tell them without telling them. No, this is what will happen, but you also can't go further and say, hey, just don't show up, because then you're getting into a different realm where they don't need the witness.
yes.
What level of felony is intimidating witnesses?
No, it's tampering. It'd be witness tampering. It's not intimidation. Right?
Tampering, yeah.
What is that? Is that a gross?
No, I don't know.
It can't be more than a D, if it is.
I don't know.
I wonder if it would be like resisting, where it follows the charge underlying. So like witness tampering with a a misdemeanor, would it be a misdemeanor? But witness tampering with a felony, would it be another felony?
I have no idea. It would make sense.
We'll do that next time. Okay, so basically the victim doesn't really press the charges, though. They just kind of make the report, and then the state presses the charges, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in your experience, has the DA really taken it into consideration if let's say a victim, after the fact comes to their victim advocate or even the prosecutor themselves and they talk to them before preliminary and says, hey, this wasn't a great situation, but I don't want to do this. I don't want this to happen to my husband, brother, cousin, friend, whatever.
I think it just depends on the district attorney.
Yeah. Have you had experiences where the DA will take that into consideration in a way that's meaningful for the defendant?
Yes.
And then have you had it
the other way? Yes.
The other way?
I've had it both ways. Yes.
What teams are the DAs in our courtroom?
No.
Let me guess. Outlying?
No. Juvenile.
Oh, juvenile. Really? They don't care.
Well, it's not that they don't care. It's just
or that they take it less in consideration.
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends on the DA. I had DAs that would take it into consideration and other DAs that would not take it into consideration and force the alleged victim to come to court with the threats of bench warrants and stuff if they don't come and testify.
Yeah, I definitely use bench warrants as a prosecutor. And looking back, I'm like, man, what a jerk. But you gotta, sometimes the times that I did it were only cases where it was a little bit more serious. For example, I had a DV where it was the same victim and like the third one, and it was DV by strangulation, and the same guy, the same defendant had committed a DV on his mother and broken her arm before and went to prison for it. And so this dude had not learned his lesson. And, we talked, and when we talked the first time, she's like, okay, I need this to stop. I want to help myself. And I'm like, okay, great. And then I don't know what he said to her the week before trial, but then she's like, nope, it never happened. I'm not coming. And I'm like, well, yeah, you will, because I already prepared for this trial. So you're going to do it one of two ways. You don't have to say anything. That's your right. The judge will do what the judge is going to do, but you're going to be there, and I'm going to make sure of that. Don't make me do this, please. And she didn't. She showed up.
Did she testify?
She did. She lied through her teeth, but that's okay. I wasn't concerned with that. She also coached her daughter who was there. And so this is one of the things that I think a lot of lawyers maybe miss, and I'm taking a little bit of what you've got over there with the consideration for the kids and talking to them in a certain way. So the daughter was 7 at the time, and she was 6 when the incident occurred. So old enough to, see and hear everything. And she actually spoke to the police officer on body cam that night. So I knew exactly what she saw. So when I get her on the stand and I start asking her what happened, because the mom wouldn't tell the truth, you could tell very early on that the mom had coached her and that she was super conflicted about it. The kid was like not upset. Well, she was upset, but she wasn't like beside herself, but she started crying on me. And so I immediately was just like, you know what? Thank you for telling me this. And I actually got comments by the jury, and I can't remember exactly what I said to her, but I dialed it back real quick. I went from tell me what happened to the story to like, tell me how your day was. Who brought you here today? Is your family with you? Just to ask a few questions to, make her time be worth it. And one of the jurors was like, you were really, really nice to that little girl. I wasn't sure if you were going to go in on her. I was like, what kind of animal would I have been if I was like, no, tell me the truth? I was like, okay, thank you so much.
You can't handle the truth.
They saw through it. Everybody saw, everybody knows, but you gotta be nice to the kids. Mm-hmm. Can't be a jerk to children, especially.
Exactly.
Or people that are only child-sized.
Wow. Wow. Let's get to the next topic.
All right. So
because Justin's a jerk.
I'm just making jokes. It's fine. Anyway, so this ties into something that we've been talking about before. You saw it on the other episodes with police officer interactions. And I thought about this after our last episode. I actually got pulled out of my vehicle by a police officer. I was on my way to a deposition in Laughlin. And have you been out there?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that part where you're in the windy hills and then you're going down that big hill right before you get into town?
Yes.
Well, I was going down that. I drive an F-150 super cab, so it's a heavier truck, and I just wasn't really paying attention. I always speed anyway out there because there's nothing out there. And I think I was going 81 in a 65. NHP officer pulls me over. I think he was going the other way, and I was coming around a bend, and I literally wasn't even accelerating. I was just coasting. Pulls me over. And I do the same thing I usually do whenever I get pulled over. At the time, especially, I had a fishbowl, so no tent in my truck. and I had my Smith & Wesson M&P9 2.0. It's my everyday carry for my concealed carry. It's stuck between my center console and my seat. Well, that's not a good place for a gun to be when a cop comes up. And I also didn't have a lot of time because he got right out of his truck, or his cruiser. And I take the weapon in its holster and I throw it on the other side of the dash. It's far enough away that if I wanted to get to it, I'd have to unbuckle myself and climb over there. All my windows down, hands out, concealed carry in one hand, driver's license in the other. 9 times out of 10, they don't care. Like literally every other time I've been pulled over, which is less than 10 times, the police officer's like, okay, whatever, just leave it, don't touch it. I'm like, obviously, right? I wouldn't be doing this way if I was going to touch it. And this guy was super not happy immediately. He grabbed my wrist from the outset as soon as he saw the weapon, took my licenses, put them in his pocket, made me reach down and unbuckle my own seatbelt. And then it was super awkward because we kept having to switch hands with which hand he had control of to get me out of the truck, like because I had to reach down and push the unlock button and all this stuff. And then he gets me out, takes me to the back, pats me down for weapons, which I guess at that point, Terry frisk, that's probably okay. But pulling me out of the truck at that point, I don't think was good to begin with. Then he goes and gets in my truck when I explicitly told him not to. I was like, you do not have permission to get in my truck. Do not look through anything. He's like, I'm getting the weapon. I'm like, you don't have permission to do that. And he's like, I'm doing it anyway. He goes and gets the weapon, takes it back to the cruiser, keeps me, standing there. And the funny thing is I was on the way to the deposition. The court reporter and the other attorney drove past me when this is happening. He didn't recognize me, but she did. Anyway, so I'm trying to shorten this a little bit. He takes me back, puts me in the vehicle, runs the serial numbers on the weapon, comes back and starts grilling me about where I got the gun. And I was like, at the time I couldn't really remember. I was like, I don't know. I think it was Ventura Munitions. I'm not sure. It's somewhere in town at this intersection. And he's like, oh, the reason I ask is because the serial number on the firearm starts with NHP. Well, I guess NHP officers, they had a contract with whatever company. So all their Glocks or whatever they had, their serial numbers were all NHP. And so he thought I'd gotten it. And I was like, no, I absolutely just bought it at Ventura or wherever it was. And it was a completely random coincidence. Then he brought it back in an evidence bag. Weapon in one, ammunition and magazine in the other. I was pissed. But I start out every police interaction with yes or no, sir. Obviously, I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything I can to make this guy comfortable because obviously their job sucks. We're out in the middle of nowhere. Crazy things happen. He went from 0 to 60 real fast. And at the end of the interaction, I was not being polite. I threw out words like probable cause, reasonable suspicion. You have none. And in my head, I'm thinking, even if I would have done something wrong, that gun gets thrown out every day of the week, right? What do you do in that situation as a defense attorney?
Well, was the stop even legal?
Yeah, sure.
He was speeding.
You were speeding.
Yeah, I was
He
speeding.
was going 16 over, so
Yeah, for sure.
Well, there was no reason to take you out of the car.
No.
There was no reason.
And what would he have needed at that point? What's the...
Well, the problem is the officers like to argue that they're taking the person out of the car for their own safety. So what are the reasons, facts that make it so that this officer thought his safety was in peril to take you out of the car?
Did it look like a fake CCW license? Is it your one
Yeah.
that you have where it looks like
No.
you're coming out of jail with that orange
But
shirt?
it doesn't matter if it looks like that. It's a legit... I mean, it's...
Well, he didn't have an opportunity to run it yet.
Just look at this stupid thing. Like, that's real. It's real,
Okay.
right?
You used to have the one with the orange shirt, though, right?
Yeah, I was wearing a Syracuse shirt the first day that I went. When I got there was a cop. I want to say I got pulled over in New Mexico one time when I was driving back and forth between here and Kansas, and I had an orange shirt on, and he looks at it and he goes, "Oh, I thought it was an inmate card." I'm like, "No, dude, it's my concealed carry." Like what? But yeah, so I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to anybody who's looked at these that that's a real concealed carry permit.
And on your way to the depot, what were you? You were wearing something kind of shady, right?
Yeah. I had a tie with a half Windsor, a pressed white button-down shirt. No pocket, though, because those are not cool. And I think I had a black John Varvatos suit on. Yeah.
Real threatening.
Very much.
Yes.
Yeah, and but my actions of, rolling all my windows down, not just the driver's side, but like
You
passenger.
followed all the rules correctly.
Right.
You followed everything correctly.
Didn't matter.
No.
No.
So you would take it to prelim, probably get bound up, but then win at jury trial.
How does it get bound up?
He didn't commit a felony.
No, I mean, what were you charged? What would you have been charged with?
I'm just saying, like,
Speeding.
let's.
Yeah,
let's,
I thought
no,
it
but
would have been like theft of a police officers'
No, but
guns.
let's say that I did. Let's say that gun was hot
Yeah.
or something. I had a stolen weapon. He did all that to search it. You don't get that suppressed?
You try. But
Judges
you're looking at me like
decide.
that.
Judges decide.
Judges decide.
Do you think any of the prosecutors we deal with doesn't say, all right, we're dropping that because we know we're going to lose?
I don't know. No comment.
Wow.
It always depends what judge you're in front of,
yes.
right?
I guess I'm just putting my prosecutor hat on, and there are many cases I can remember explicitly where similar facts, different stuff, and I made a show of it. I'd invite my officers in, especially in Kansas. It's a much smaller jurisdiction we were in. I had really good interactions with the sheriff's office. The DA's office was here. The sheriff's office was right across the hall. I could literally just walk in there and go see my detectives whenever I wanted to. And I'd invite the officers in. Hey, let's talk about this case. And you see this one on the particular defendant? I'd throw it in the trash. Why? Because you violated her Fourth Amendment rights. Turns out it's not illegal to walk down the street with a backpack on, even if you have two. No, it's that's still perfectly fine. You can't just search the backpack, idiots. Yeah. So how would a person in that situation politely decline a police officer's request to search a vehicle?
Just say no.
Okay, that's it. It's that simple.
You can say no, but the officer is going to do what the officer is going to do.
Well, Justin didn't have a choice there, obviously, but there
I
are a
did
lot
have
of
a choice, and I made the right one,
yeah. You can't. You can tell him no,
which I did.
but there's a lot of times someone will get pulled over, and a police officer will ask, "Hey, there's nothing you're hiding, right? I'm okay to search your vehicle, right?"
And then they say, oh, yeah, go ahead, search my vehicle.
Most people say yeah to that, right? Our instruction is to say no.
Yeah, on the binary, is that a good or a bad idea?
No, I think it's a good idea. At least you're,
No, I meant to let them search a vehicle.
oh, no,
Terrible idea.
terrible idea.
Awful.
Yes.
Our question is just how do you say that to a judge a police officer without them getting their feathers all ruffled?
I don't think there's really any way. The police officer is going to do what the police officer is going to do. So you just got to let him do it and then call your attorney.
Have you found the majority of police officers, at least in cases you've seen, whenever someone says no, they go ahead and search, or do they respect that?
They go ahead and search.
Yeah?
Well, you have to understand, I've been dealing with children.
She
Oh,
sees when there's charges, right?
Sure.
And we see the bad ones when they get charged.
Yeah, that's true.
So we don't see the ones where they say, "Okay, I won't search," because then
They don't charge anything.
Yeah.
it doesn't
So,
come to our tables as criminal defense.
Does that
attorneys.
work the same way with kids and adults? It's all the same standard,
It's pretty much the same standard, yes.
pretty much.
Except for like Miranda, you have the child standard for determining whether or not the child can understand Miranda and waive the rights.
Is there a child standard for custodial interrogation? Like when the child would feel, like basically
Yes.
a 16-year-old versus a 25-year-old?
Yes, there is. Yes. So to determine whether or not that child understands that they are not free to leave is at the reasonable child standard, not the reasonable adult standard.
Okay.
of their age? I would imagine.
Age is considered. Experience is considered. Their maturity, like their intellect, is also considered.
So if you have a completely normal kid, by all metrics, right, intellectually, whatever, but they've never dealt with police, don't have any experience with it, then you have a completely normal kid, all the same stuff, but they've had 10 interactions with police officers. Is that a different standard at that point then, you think?
That's just what's considered
Sure.
in determining whether or not the child can understood waiving his or her Miranda rights.
Is there ever an age where they can't and they have to have parents to waive that right?
No.
Really?
Yeah, so like a police officer can interview an 8-year-old, give them their Miranda,
And then arrest them.
and then arrest them. And a lot of times the adults are like, well, that police officer could not talk to my kid without me present. And I'm like, no, that child has to ask for you to be present. And a lot of times kids won't ask to have their parents there.
They don't know.
Because they don't want to get in trouble also.
Exactly. They don't
Yeah.
want to get in trouble.
Yeah. Wait a
Yes.
minute. Hey, will you call my dad and tell him that there's police officers asking me questions?
Yes.
No, absolutely not. Remember when I was a kid, I had to go to the detective's office a couple of times, and the only time that I actually called my parents was when they were like, yo, we're going to need to go see what's in your room, buddy. And I'm like, let me tell my parents first. Literally the other time when they're like, oh, we don't have to tell anybody anything. I'm like, cool, we're not talking to my parents then. See ya. I was, as I said, delinquent. Don't play with fireworks, kids. It's not worth it.
Delinquent, but never adjudicated delinquent.
Never.
Never got caught.
Correct. All right.
It's not a crime if you're not caught, right?
That's not true. Still a crime. You just didn't get caught. And you will eventually. So we have some articles to talk about.
Yes, we have an attorney, a YouTuber attorney who got famous following Johnny Depp trials. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, and I'm going to try to pronounce his name. I'll say it a few times so Austin can cut out when I say it wrong. Nick Rekieta, something like that. Famous YouTuber who happens to be a lawyer, but seems to have given up his law practice to just YouTube, and his life has kind of spiraled downward. He recently got arrested with his wife for possession of drugs, for having discharged cartridges in his home where his children live. So he's standing trial for this, been recently charged with it. There was a video that somebody posted on Reddit, and I want to show you it. Okay? Just the difference between Nick. We'll put it up on the screen as well for the audience. But
it's not a good choice. It's not a bad choice. It is a choice that is neutral. The goodness and the badness is always in your context. If you are not someone who should be drinking, do not drink. If you're able to drink, enjoy it. If you're able to drink now and not able to drink later, then stop. If you need to take a break, take a break. That's on you. That's on you. Your life is in control. This substance does not control you. Neither does anyone's opinion about any substance. This, ice cream, whatever it is, do what is right for you.
Why is my camera so on?
so crazy video that we will show our audience maybe with some blurring out of
We'll
some
probably
parts.
stop before the end of that first one. I think we only need like the first 5 seconds of that.
It
second
shows a
one.
lot. This was recently in the news, and we're talking about topical legal issues at all times here. So every year, as lawyers, we have to have continuing legal education credits, CLEs. And one of those has to deal with substance abuse. And every single class I've taken in the few years I've been doing this are the just most insane, spiraling downward stories of people. And a few of them that get beyond that and tell you the story of how every day they were doing cocaine, or every day they were doing heroin, or their alcohol dependency was so horrible. Obviously, we don't know the full story of this Mr. Rekieta here, but based on that video alone, you can maybe paint a picture of what has been happening in his life recently. The reason we bring this is we know criminal defense attorneys, especially, there's an immense amount of pressure placed on you. I can imagine the immense amount of pressure placed on you by parents to help their children get out of trouble or change their lives if, you know, they know that there's an issue. How do you deal with that stress in an appropriate way? Kerri Maxey, how do you deal with this stress?
I escape in fiction. I read books. I live a different life.
So jealous. No, I'm serious. I can't read for fun anymore. I used to do it all the time, but I read too much for work.
Can't read for fun, or
Well,
can't
that's
read?
why it's got to be fiction. I
No,
mean,
even so, like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and stuff. I've
Yeah.
read each of those, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've read it 9 times, right? But it's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
If I went to do it now, like I recently reread The Hobbit, and it took me a month and a half, because every time I would do it, like after work, I'd start to get just exhausted. I mean, I watch a lot of TV, like when I, at night or whatever. But I mean that sincerely. I'm so jealous. I used to love reading. I'd read every single night. I know how to read. I know it's shocking. Shane. He's looking at me like, what? This guy can read?
It's just the pictures and videos they give you in the evidence packet, right? And you're like, none of these words matter. I want to see the pictures in the video.
Where's the crayon version of this?
I know you interviewed them. There's body-worn camera here.
Let
I
me
know
watch the
it.
camera. It's like a TV show. No, so seriously, that's awesome. I'm being sincere. So you read. What else?
I read, travel.
Where's your favorite place you've traveled?
I think Iceland was the most beautiful place and the best food.
Every single person I've talked to about it, which now you're the fifth one, said it was probably one of the most beautiful places they've ever been.
Yeah.
What's their food? I've never heard of Icelandic food.
Halibut.
It's sheep.
Sheep?
Yeah.
Yeah, sheep's good.
Yeah. There's no beef.
Sheep and goat, good.
Yeah. Sheep and goat. It was good. It was good.
Goat's milk a lot. Goat cheese.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
really
you
good.
do any of the fjords or go over any of the glaciers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crazy.
It was beautiful.
Awesome.
So that's how I should avoid becoming, since we're so big and famous on YouTube already,
Ooh, wow.
another 30,000 view on TikTok, by the way.
All right. Sarcasm, everybody.
Hairline of a teenager.
Face of a 45-year-old.
Well, yeah. I know.
Okay, so you travel and you read books, and that works for you?
Yeah.
So everybody's got their thing, right? I do jujitsu and Muay Thai and MMA. Before that, I did rugby. It was basically I have to have sport. I have to have some athletic goal. It makes me, I like working out anyway, but it makes me want to work out more. And then I also have something I can compete every once in a while. Like I'm old now, I'm 38, so I can't do it every weekend like I used to. But it's nice every quarter or whatever. I'm going to do an MMA fight probably at the end of the year whenever my coaches tell me I'm ready. I have to have that. And for me, that's perfect. So for you, that's good. It seems to me, speaking to people, it's mostly find your thing.
Yeah, it is.
Whatever
Find
that
your
is.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what's yours, Shane?
Yeah.
I eat a lot of food.
He does have a what is it? Shane B. Grubbin?
Shane Grubbin.
Shane Grubbin.
The food Instagram first shout out.
Yeah.
Oh,
and he
I
takes
hope
pictures and stuff.
I hope I get more followers. I drink a lot of different sodas too. I've tried over 80 kinds of Mountain Dew.
The Baja Blast things that they do, he'll make a whole thing of it. Before I got off Instagram, it's like you look at stories or these silly Doritos.
These
That's why they're
these
here.
are Baja because Pepsi owns both Doritos and Mountain Dew. So we'll open them up after and you can try. They're a little spicy, mango spicy, very good.
None for me, thanks.
But I don't know. I have family responsibilities, church responsibilities, so I'm always busy. I play a lot of board games too.
Yeah.
So
Anything else other than traveling and books for you? You got pets?
I do.
What kind of pets?
I have 2 cats,
What are their names?
Bama and Allie.
Okay. Roll Tide.
Yes, Roll Tide.
lost the vote. Of all the Auburn
How did
fans.
you explain that to me, please?
My husband was this huge Alabama fan, so for me to marry him, I had to convert to Alabamaism.
Is that the word
Alabamaism.
for it?
I mean, have you met those people?
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, Alabama fans, there is no half measure with them.
No.
You are true and through. I went to the UT Alabama game 2 years ago in Austin. Awesome experience. I've never been to a college ball game, and it was awesome.
And Austin's cool.
Austin's cool and weird. Keep Austin weird.
Keep Austin weird.
And they have one of the best barbecue joints I've ever been to in my life. It was like a buffet style barbecue joint. I can't remember the name of it, but the line was super long.
Terry Black's?
Yes.
I know food. I told you I know
So
food.
this fool. What?
I told you.
Oh, best barbecue in Austin. Anyway, it was super great, but the game itself, it was awesome. I was so wrapped up in it, and I was pissed because Alabama's quarterback got hurt in the first quarter, and then UT ended up winning by like a touchdown. And there's no way that would have happened if old boy wouldn't have got his ribs popped.
Yeah.
I was furious because I was rooting for Alabama that day.
Thank you.
And I was just like, man, that's such a weak way to win at UT. What's going on? No, it's just bad luck. But anyway, okay, that's cool. So we all have good hobbies to keep us out of doing silly things like getting wasted and falling asleep on camera.
Just, don't do that. And whatever he
but-
was doing at the end, don't record yourself live.
And the other thing
Streaming is
that I
huge
think
now.
people forget and this is the biggest part for me from sport and the military, like everybody has somebody they can talk to, right? You have friends you vent to about stuff.
Absolutely. Yes.
Share funny stories.
Yes.
Share unfunny stories. Talk about stress.
Yes.
You think that that's helpful?
It is. So I'm a widow. I used to be able to talk about work with my husband all the time. But after he passed away, I try to talk about work to my best friend. She will not hear any of the stories about kids. It affects her. But now that I'm in the work, representing adults, all she wants to hear is those stories.
Right. And you can tell them in a way that you're not violating client confidentiality,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. You just don't say the name. You just don't tell them what they tell you.
We just had a really funny interaction recently, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Paraphrase for me. Tell me.
Oh no, you paraphrase it.
So there's a police report that you got for a defendant, correct?
Yes.
Where the defendant had gone swimming in a place he shouldn't have.
Correct.
That was the Bellagio fountains down here.
Yes.
And he did so in a very free way, correct?
Well, I mean, he didn't. Yeah.
He was naked.
His
In
birthday
the most
suit.
natural way.
He was bare-assed, as we say in Kansas. And the police officer that wrote the report,
You should have saw this.
it was wild. I've never seen anything like this.
Me neither.
There was one point where he was talking about the water glistening off his chest, and I think that might be a direct, like that section might be a direct
I
quote.
think
correct?
it was.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, the something about the sunlight glinting off the water, glistening, and I was like, "What is this? A romance novel? What are we?" Because I mean, yeah, they usually put a lot of detail, but they do it for specific reasons, right? It's usually tailored to whatever the charge is. They're meeting elements, or they're saying things that are factually important. Right hand here. That's why I knew that there was something on that pocket. It wasn't just like, oh, let me see your,
Clothes would not glisten.
They would not.
Skin
However,
would glisten.
Skin and just bronze, tan, whatever. It was wild. It was wild.
Your skin would glisten.
My skin is pink. It would, I don't know what it would do. I'd get sunburns. Like, it'd be like a magnifying glass. I'd turn red, man. It'd be awful. How did that pop up? I don't know. It was just funny. It was funny. What do you have a suspicion about that? Because the way that was written?
A coworker thought it might have been written by AI
That's
instead of the police officer. Just the
because
way.
who writes like that?
Maybe I know police officers where it's, hey, you do your 20 years, you get your retirement, and then that second job, that second career, writer. He wants to be a writer, testing it out.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe he's going to
Seeing-
write romance novels now. Because it described other things in great
It,
detail,
it
didn't
was it read like erotica. That's the only way to explain it.
Seriously,
Yes.
I don't even know if I can say what it said on here.
You got to have fun.
It
You
was
got to
all-
have fun.
It was all, obviously it was court appropriate. It was just a lot of detail.
We all have to have our escape, guys.
And hey, police officers, they need that too. Their job is very stressful, just like ours.
It is.
It is.
It is.
And
It really
so-
is.
But yeah, back to the thing. Yeah. I always hammer this, talk to somebody. If you have an issue, call them. To my friends in the legal community, I've said this to my buddies from the military. You got my number, you got my email, my stuff's always open. I don't care. What's the saying? I'd rather have 2 hours on a phone call than go to another funeral.
Yes.
So
988 National Suicide Hotline that just got started as well.
yeah,
So
that stuff's no joke, guys.
if there's nobody for you or you don't think there's anyone for you,
There
at
is
least
somebody.
call 988, please.
Yeah. All right. So we always wrap our show up with a listener question. So this is one that we picked from the questions that we got, and it's an odd one, but we're gonna try our best.
It's a crazy civil law one, Kerri.
And
so
it says-
we'll ask you about. There's one case from law school that you might have heard that we're going to talk about too.
So he says, I'm suing an airline that's based out of the country but operates in the USA. So think like Etihad or somebody like that, in small claims court. Going to file in my local district court. I expect them to fight jurisdiction. Any tips or advice for me? It's not a big enough claim to hire an attorney, so I'm going pro se. No details about what for. Small claims typically means less than the value of $10,000. At least that's here in Nevada. So maybe lost luggage that they didn't give him money back for. Maybe missed a flight because the airline and didn't get what he wanted. I don't know. So what tips or advice would you give for that person? Because you understand civil law, at least as it relates to Nevada.
Yeah, but jurisdiction is a completely different thing. My tip would be go to the self-help center at Legal Aid Center Southern Nevada and ask them, because
Or
We don't
the
know
state-
where- we don't know
or the
where this
state that
is,
you,
yeah.
that you live in.
or whatever state, yeah, whatever. Go
Don't-
to the self-help center of some legal aid place.
And they'll give you tips and
Yes,
advice, correct?
absolutely.
So
Help
do
you
you-
fill out the forms, all of that.
Law school question here. Is the airline subject to the jurisdiction of whatever state that they operate in?
The state that they operate in?
Presumably, the question that I'm reading through the lines here, but presumably the airline does operate in the state.
Yes,
Why?
because that's where they're incorporated, I'm assuming. No?
We don't know.
See?
We don't know.
So you're right.
So many
but-
details we don't
but
know.
I think the difference here is that they have availed themselves. They've purposely availed themselves by operating in that state and retaining a benefit from it.
Okay.
So they should then be held liable, held to answer in the courts, right? Because it's the international shoe test, right? It's
International shoe.
purposeful
Minimum
availment, minimum
contacts.
contacts, sufficient minimum contacts. Law school was more recent for us,
Yeah.
by a smidge. So,
By a smidge?
Most recent
yeah.
for you, Justin.
Well, I actually took the most recent bar out of everybody.
That's true too.
Like I got licensed here in 2017, and then I got licensed in Kansas in 2019.
Good for you.
So one of the
Congratulations.
factors is they do have to conduct business
Mm-hmm.
in the state or city that you're trying to sue them in. You can't sue someone in a city, state that they've never done any business in. That's kind of a general rule. We don't know specifically your issue.
Sure.
It did look like the case law was kind of all over on this, whether you could sue an international airline specifically in
There is-
your state.
There is actually a case on this that we did in law school. It's called Helicopteros. It was a Venezuelan helicopter company that was ran by another company, and I believe it was a touring company. And this is literally just triggered in my mind. It was a touring company that had a crash here in the U.S., but it was based in another place. I can't remember the holding of that case, but I do know that that case specifically deals with a helicopter company that was foreign, and it was Venezuelan.
Hey, look that one up, Adam L2932. We've given you some direction.
So you think go to legal aid?
Go to legal aid.
Yes, go to a legal aid.
It sounds super complicated. For,
It does.
Yes,
for
it
this
does.
case, and
So
one interesting. Were you going to get into the service issue?
no, you can do that. I want to talk about what personal jurisdiction is or what jurisdiction is, so that because we did kind of glazed over that because we all know jurisdiction is just the ability for the court to hear a matter for a particular person or party. Basically, if you live in New York and you've never been to California, you've never done anything in California, you can't be reasonably expected to go to court in California, right? And I'm obviously making a very broad example here to illustrate when it wouldn't be okay, right? Because they don't want people just being able to be sued in random places. It doesn't make sense. It's not fair. You've not purposely availed yourself to that court's jurisdiction. And the jurisdiction is just the ability for the court to act on you.
Wow, that sounded boring.
Civil law sometimes is very boring, and personal jurisdiction made me want to chew on glass.
Yes. first semester of law school. Be
Yes.
ready to learn civil procedure. Super boring. There was a case in law school that was super hilarious. Sometimes a person needs to be served the lawsuit within a certain state, okay? And service has to be, we've seen the movie Pineapple Express, right?
You've been served.
You've been served. He dresses up in
Like doctor outfits.
a ton of different ways
UPS.
to serve documents.
Have you seen that movie?
Long time ago.
Seth
I don't remember
Rogen.
Yeah,
it.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
It's the very first scene, like when he's just driving around smoking weed, listening to the radio, and he's like got all these outfits in his trunk, and it's so he can serve people with their divorce papers and stuff. Yeah.
So in a case in 1959, Grace versus MacArthur. Maybe when I explain this, it'll spark
It will
some
spark
memories.
something. Okay.
A person attempted to serve another person in a state. They were flying from Tennessee to Texas, and during that flight, they flew over the state of Arkansas. So while they were over the state of Arkansas, not on the ground, obviously, a process server served a passenger on the plane with a lawsuit.
Because they were ducking service.
They were ducking service, and they weren't coming to this specific state of Arkansas. So the court had to determine whether that was proper service, whether that person had personally availed themselves of that state by being in a plane going over that state. Does this ring a bell? Did they not learn about this? Did you not learn about this in law school?
I hated law school.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Absolutely
I
hated
said
it.
that on the podcast. So
Yeah, law school was not awesome.
not awesome. So the court in this instance did determine that that was proper service, that being over the state in a plane was enough that that person was in the state and could be properly served with the lawsuit.
Well, I mean, it makes sense when you look at the analogous property rights you have, right?
They don't go up to where planes are, though.
Yeah, they do.
You can't.
It's unlimited.
You can't build
It's-
something up to where planes
You can't
fly.
build something, but you have property rights in everything that goes straight above your house. Check me. I'm right. That's why mineral rights are sold separately, because under the ground, they can split them. But where everything from the ground to the heavens is yours. That's why you run into trespassing with drones and stuff.
In theory,
In actuality, in most states.
I think we've done our hour, Kerri.
have.
We're so very grateful to have you here
Last
with us.
thing, where can people find you to learn about you?
Oh, maxeyforjudge.com.
Can you spell that, please?
Yes, MAXEY, the number 4, judge.com.
Do you have any social medias for that?
I do a Facebook and
Instagram.
Instagram.
And it's the same, Maxey for Judge.
Correct.
And then do you have any upcoming campaign events or anything like that? I mean, I don't know how that goes for you guys.
Not right now because the primaries are going, so I'm not on the ballot for primaries. It's I don't want to confuse voters. Have them looking for my name on the ballot.
Sure.
Vote
so-
in November, though.
Yeah, but vote in November.
Okay. And if you were to have any events or a place where they could hear you speak or anything like that, or it'd be on your website.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Well, I, for one, am going to follow you. And the next time you have a campaign event, I'll be there. The
I
last
think
one was
I'm
great.
planning in August. When in
Well,
August?
You let me know, and I'm there.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, Kerri.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.